The wind off the narrow sea carried the brine-sharp scent of distant storms as Jon Snow stood upon the ramparts of Dragonstone. The rough-hewn stone beneath his gloved hands still warm from the lingering daylight. Dawn had only just surrendered its last rose-gold embers to shadow, yet the courtyard below already thrummed with muted urgency. Armorers polishing half-moon shields, stable hands soothing restive horses that stamped and snorted at the pervasive reek of dragons. Above, Rhaegal swept broad wings through the sky that was neither night nor morning, casting an immense shadow over the parapets before banking low toward the volcanic crags erupting from the keep's western flank. Drogon dozed upon the cliff ledge beneath the painted table tower, coils of dark smoke curling from his nostrils in slow, deliberate drifts. Even at rest, he resembled living war writ large. Jon's black leather cloak flapped at his calves as the sea breeze freshened, and he closed his eyes for a moment longer, letting the salt mist sting his face. Memories flickered. Ghosts of blood spattered snowbanks and the bitter winter winds of the north. Of Daenerys' final breath beneath Red Keep rubble, of a crown spurned and half the realm plunged into ash and howl. He exhaled, tasting iron on his tongue. The past was carved into bone now. Dwelling on it served no cause but self-ruin. Ahead lay only the fragile thread of purpose he had seized at great cost. A fragile thread now spooled toward Dorne. Footfalls scraped stone behind him. A woman's step. Swift, confident, carrying neither apology nor fear. Arya would have landed lighter. Sansa would have paused in the archway. Jon did not need to turn to know it was Queen Arianne Martell. He felt her presence before she spoke, like the faint sizzle of summer thunder on the horizon. "You've been up here long enough to grow moss, Snow." Her voice, dusky as mulled wine, curled around the title as though it were a private joke meant for two. "The council gathers in the map room. If we're to cross the Red Mountains by dawn 3 days hence, we can scarcely dally." He straightened. "I'll not keep you waiting." Arianne drifted closer until their shoulders nearly brushed, rich sand-colored silk shifting over her frame with the whisper of dunes at midnight. The torchlight licked bronze highlights across her dark curls, revealing obsidian eyes alive with tempered amusement. She followed Rhaegal's banking arc until the green dragon vanished behind the stony promontory. "Your beasts circle like hawks that have scented prey," she observed. "The Stormlands must be cowering at every shadow cast on their hills these past weeks." Jon's mouth twitched. "A hawk worries only one nest at a time. Tonight, their wings shade Dorne. So, you remind the lords who doubt." She inclined her head. "They'll need seeing. Too many in my court still taste Dragonfire's ruin when they recall the sacking of Sunspear by the young dragon generations ago. Your envoy's words cannot cool that memory alone. That is why I fly with them." Jon's gaze held hers, steady as winter stone. Words carried on the backs of dragons weigh heavier than parchment. Arianne studied him a heartbeat longer, measuring resolve perhaps, or searching for cracks where grief might seep like tainted water. Whatever she sought, she seemed to find it steady enough. She pivoted toward the stair. "Come," she said, and the single syllable cracked like a whip. "We have miles of hostile sky to tame before first light." The map room's air hung thick with candle smoke and the sour tang of spilt wine. Ads of yellowed parchment layered the painted table's ancient contours of Westeros, each inked with fresh skirmish lines and tiny sigils pinned by iron nails. Here perched the son and spear of House Martell. There the snarling stag of what remained of Baratheon, holdouts clinging to Storm's End. Where the reach angled north, sprouted field-green roses of Tyrell loyalists, now courting Targaryen favor, though Jon wore no crown and had no wish for one. Across the realm, allegiances twisted in slow-moving eddies as wary houses tested the new tide. Sir Davos Seaworth, still salt-weathered and gray-bearded, leaned upon the table's rim, pointing with an unbandaged finger toward the jagged tan line that marked the Red Mountains. "Here lies Hellholt Pass," he said. "Narrow enough that 2 riders abreast pinch their knees. Any army marching east through those teeth'll bleed half its number before they smell Dornish wine. But dragons... Aye, dragons clip mountains down to mole hills." Lord Davos paused, glancing toward Jon. "Problem is, my king, begin your pardon. Flames alone don't hold a pass. Men hold passes. And the men you send to garrison after you scorch the rocks will need supplies. Ben. Lord Garland Tyrell, broad-shouldered and mild in voice, but keen as any maester's quill, folded lean arms across his verdant doublet. We of the Reach can provision a host, provided the coastal lords accept Dornish access through the Prince's Pass. He slid a look to Arianne. There is history to mend before wagons roll. Arianne's lips curved slightly, not soft, but sharp like a scimitar's first edge. The history you speak of began when the Reachmen coveted Dornish water and burned our villages for sport. The sand remembers every blade. She reached to reposition a small golden spearpin atop the pass. Yet Dorne is not blind to the hour's need. Allow my riders to guide your caravans. Our water gardens will supply what the coast denies. Tension fluttered above candle flame. Garland's nostrils flared as he weighed dignity against necessity, but he inclined his head. Very well, Princess, in good faith. Jon watched, expression unreadable. He was still learning the subtle flux beneath courtly words, where swords were sheathed in smiles. At Castle Black, a man's nod meant a life owed, a mistrust sown, or a promise of steel come dawn. Here, silk-cloaked daggers everywhere. A skinny boy in maester's gray hurried forward, an oily scroll clutched in fist. Raven from Sunspear, your highness. He bowed first to Arianne, then to Jon, stumbling so low his quills scattered from his belt. Jon motioned gently, and the boy delivered the missive. Arianne broke the seal and skimmed. My uncle, Prince Quentyn, reports forces massing near Ghost Hill. 10 galleys under black and gold. She lifted eyes shadowed with warning. The Storm Queens, sell sails, sail for the Broken Arm. Sir Davos grunted. Asha Greyjoy's colors, by that telling. She's made pact with Lord Baratheon's last scions. If they land troops at the Boneway while we cross the mountains, they could cut us from Sunspear, Jon finished. He met Rhaenys Sand's gaze, one of Arianna's cousins, lean and dusk-skinned with a scar slashing from brow to cheek. She nodded once, a vow. Jon turned back to the council. Drogon will fly west at first light, above the Boneway. Let the cell sails glimpse a shadow on the clouds, and think twice about disembarking. Rhaegal remains my mount for Sunspear's flight. Now. Garland tapped the map. And what of Vagar's egg? Word travels quicker than ravens these days. Some lords whisper you intend 3 grown dragons before the harvest wanes. I intend peace, Jon answered evenly. If hatching another dragon dissuades those who would drown the realm in more war, then yes. But eggs hatch in their own time. Silence followed, broken only by the wax-thick drip of candles. At length, Sir Davos cleared his throat. Your Grace, we need sign. The realm's weary of rumors. Fly with the princess over the Red Mountains, descend upon Sunspear, and name your alliance in sight of half Dornish nobility. Let lords from Starfall to Skyreach witness, and carry home the truth. And now. Jon looked to Arianne. She studied him, eyes like polished jet. A spectacle, she mused. My people revere spectacle, almost as deeply as they revere vengeance. Show them dragon flame, born not to scourge, but to protect, and they may yet believe your cause. Then it's decided, Jon said. We leave before the gulls cry dawn. Night deepened to a violet abyss, spangled with stray flecks of far-lost suns. On the terrace outside his chambers, Jon stood clad in riding leathers of black and brown dragon scale, sewn by Winterfell's last surviving armorsmith. Ghost lay at his feet, a gray shadow grown older and slower, but no less vigilant. The dire wolf's red gaze tracked every flicker along the corridor, while Jon adjusted the baldric bearing Longclaw across his back. A soft knock came. Missandei of Enith slipped in, her honey-brown curls bound by Dornish copper. She carried a bundle of parchment and thread-bound journals. From the archives below, she said, accounts of the First Dornish War, treaties sealed by Princess Nymeria line, and these, she offered 3 slender volumes. King Aegon's personal correspondence with Queen Rhaenys after the burning of the Will stronghold. Jon took them gingerly. For what purpose? Missandei hesitated. Princess Arianne asked that you understand the scorched soil on which you land. Dorne's songs remember wounds generations have tried to bury. Jon flipped a page. Ink scrawled across in fine Valyrian glyphs described a river that ran red and a princess weeping for charred stone children hidden beneath rubble that glowed like coals. He closed the volume, jaw tight. Tell the princess I understand. Flames leave scars even dragons can't mend. He handed the journals back. Keep them safe. The knowledge may yet soothe old hatreds. Missandei dipped her head. I shall. She withdrew, leaving the night cool once more. Ghost whuffed. Jon knelt, scratching behind the direwolf's ears. Stay, my friend, he murmured. Watch over those I leave behind. Ghost growled low. A protest, or perhaps a wish to run beneath strange southern stars. Jon's chest constricted, but he stood. The realm demanded sacrifice far more ruthless than death. It asked the living to abandon comforts that tethered them to the gentle edges of humanity. He straightened his shoulders. Outside, the great courtyard doors yawned open, revealing the dragon's roost against a sky paling with the faintest promise of dawn. Drogon awoke with a guttural rumble, eyes coals relit by unseen bellows. Scaled wings unfurled, black membranes shimmering like oil as he rose to his haunches. Rhaegal descended from the spires, his emerald bulk landing with an earthquake shudder that rattled banners overhead. Lantern light flared along ridged necks and swept claws the size of broadswords. Arianne approached in flame-orange riding leathers cut to accommodate Dornish heat. At her belt hung twin curved daggers chased with silver suns. She paused at Drogon's side, resting a palm upon glossy ebony scales. The dragon hissed, but did not recoil. Their gazes met across twin abysses of instinct older than cities. Jon stepped to Rhaegal and swung up between the dragon's shoulders. Leather straps had been tightened across horn ridges for his grip. No throne, only bare bone beneath hide. Wind tugged at his hair already. Arianne climbed Drogon's spined neck with agile grace, her silhouette stark against rosy sky glow. When she settled, Drogon shook once, testing weight, and Jon saw the thin curve of her smile. Half delight, half defiance. Shall we wake the mountains? She called across the distance. Jon answered by pressing heels to Rhaegal's ribs. Green wings beat. 1, 2. And the courtyard fell away in a maelstrom of sand and torch sparks. Drogon surged after, roaring a Thunderhead's challenge that ricocheted off Dragonstone's ramparts. Together, they arrowed south, leaving the sea to shiver in their wake. The world below unfurled in bands of dawn-lit color, ashen cliffs softening into marshy green of the rainwood, then bleeding to gold where the Dornish marches baked under early sun. Villages appeared as ashen huddles of smoke and mud brick. Sheep scattered like ivory beads across folded moors. A farmer tumbled into his irrigation canal as two leviathans shadowed his fields. Jon felt each heartbeat of Rhaegal through his thighs, the dragon's muscles rippling with silent power. He guided with subtle leanings. The beast responded as though thought and sinew had fused. They were both children of storm-born blood, after all. Drogon glided alongside, wings so vast their tips occasionally grazed Rhaegal's slipstream, shaking Jon with buffet blasts. Arianne steadied herself effortlessly, hair snapping behind like a banner. Her laughter, lost to the wind, nevertheless reached him in the spark of her eyes. Brilliant, daring. Perhaps she meant to prove Dornish steel fearless before dragonfire. Or perhaps she was simply alive, and life in this moment meant daring the impossible. Hours later, the Red Mountains rose, titanic ridges of rust-patched granite carved by ons of wind. Their peaks speared low-hung thunderclouds. Roars of unseen avalanches echoed like distant drums. Narrow passes twisted through gullies so steep light seldom touched the bottom. Here, Aegon's armies had bled their strength until the sun seemed to drink northern marrow. Jon signaled. Rhaegal ascended, green wings shredding clouds that sprayed diamond droplets across his face. Drogon followed, ravenous flames rippling beneath black scales in anticipation. They banked over craggy summits, casting elongated shadows that raced the valley floor. Below, Goats scattered and mountain hawks spiraled madly. Then Jon dipped Rhaegal's nose and dove into the pass. Wind howled, clawing at his earlobes. Jagged red rock blurred, rushing by like great crimson fangs. Rhaegal's scream ripped across the ravine, a note of savage triumph that made Jon's heart hammer with answering thrill. Behind, Drogon plunged as well, a darker comet. The mountains trembled under twin war cries, one green, one black dotto. They burst from the western mouth of the pass into sun-blasted desert. Dorne sprawled before them in rolling ochre dunes, salt flats gleaming white, and pale castles rising like mirages above date palm groves. Far off, the Sea of Dorne shimmered sapphire. Jon guided Rhaegal lower, trailing shadows across the scorched pass road, where a caravan of merchant wagons halted in awestruck silence. Silk banners drooped, forgotten. Soon the city of Sunspear glimmered on its triple-walled peninsula, domes of colored glass catching sunlight like cut jewels. At the highest tower unfurled the sun and spear, but today a second banner billowed beside it, ghost white bearing a direwolf couchant beneath 3 flaming dragons. Jon squinted. Someone anticipated his arrival. He drew breath. The alliance would live or die in these next minutes, shaped by spectacle older than language. Fire and sky and the primal weight of dragons above mortal streets. Ahead, a broad terrace jutted from Sunspear's spear tower, lined by ranks of Dornish spearmen in mirrored armor. Between their ranks stood a lone figure robed in deep copper, crown of thorns and sunrays upon his brow. Prince Doran Martell, older now, leaning upon a cane yet unbowed. To his left, Princess Arianne's mother, Lady Malario, her step just as measured as her husband's gaze was shrewd. Jon urged Rhaegal forward. The dragon's great pinions cracked, stirring whirlwind gales that sent banners snapping. Stonework groaned as talons the size of scythes bit into the terrace. Guards flinched but held formation, spears up. Heat from Rhaegal's belly radiated like a smithy forge, melting the lacquer on nearby shields. Drogon settled to Jon's right. His roar rang off Sunspear's towers, and glass mosaics trembled in iron latticework. Yet no flame spilled. Jon felt the great beast's chest rumble, an echo of Daenerys' lost heartbeat. A hush spread across Sunspear. Market still, sailcloth sagging beneath sudden silence. Flies droned lonely notes above spice stalls, unchallenged. Jon swung down. Armor creaked. He crossed the terrace floor, each footfall echoing in the hush. Prince Doran watched, eyes unreadable amber. The sea wind teased Jon's cloak, snapping it like a banner. He stopped 3 paces away, unsheathed long claw, and sank to one knee, sword presented hilt first. "Your Highness," he said, voice carrying. "House Stark comes not as conqueror, but as shield. I pledge Dragon's Wing and Northern Steel to Dorne's cause, that together we end volleys of winter and flame upon our sons and daughters." He lifted his gaze to meet Doran's. May sun and wolf together cast a shadow so vast, no tyrant dares stand within its light. Whispers rustled through the guards, like sand before a rising storm. Doran's tongue traced cracked lips. He glanced at Arianne astride Drogon high above. Her stance astride that living furnace both defiant and reverent. Something passed between father and daughter, too swift to name. He lifted his cane's tip to Jon's shoulder. "Rise, Lord Snow." The prince's voice wavered yet rang true. "Dorne accepts your oath. May our blood tangle like the roots of the sand steeds that roam the deep desert, impossible to sunder." Jon rose. The city exhaled, a collective murmur that rippled outward until distant rooftops shook. Arianne slid from Drogon's neck with feline grace and strode to Jon's side. She extended her hand. He clasped it, their fingers clasping like 2 lengths of chain forging one anchor. Above, Rhaegal trumpeted. Drogon's maw opened, but the flame he loosed was small, just a curling ribbon that flickered skyward, harmless as a smith's kiss. Yet the crowd gasped, awe blazing in their eyes. Jon felt the weight of that moment settle on his shoulders like fresh fallen snow. It was not a crown, yet it might prove heavier. To wield dragons without becoming dragon, that was the challenge. And the cost. He squeezed Arianne's hand. She looked up at him, dark eyes bright. "The realm is watching," she whispered. Jon nodded. "Then let us show them what alliance truly means." Night-draped sunspear in violet glass and saffron shadows. The water gardens echoed with music of harps and flutes, though Jon lingered on a balcony where lemon trees filled the air with tart fragrance. Waves lapped the palace seawall far below, punctuating distant laughter. Arianne joined him, 2 goblets in hand. She offered one. The wine glimmered star-green. Jon accepted but sipped only a breath. "You drink like a man afraid of forgetting," she teased. "I drink like a man who remembers too much already." He met her gaze, searching. "Tell me truly, will this hold?" "I felt hearts shift today, but fear has deep roots." Arianne leaned against the carved balustrade, the silk of her gown rustling soft as desert rain. "Fear is a vine that strangles slowly, yet hope is a blade if whetted on enough resolve. You wield dragons, Jon Snow, but their fire will mean nothing if our people do not see a future blank of ash." She turned the goblet, watching moonlight refract. "My cousin Obara leads 100 spears east to the Tor." She asked what pledge she should carry. I told her none. Instead, I sent her with sacks of grain to Ladytown where the small folk starve. "Your alliance begins not with swords, but bread." "Then shall one." Jon nodded. "I'll match your grain with timber from the stormlands once the stags stand down. Winter still stalks the north's heels. If the realm starves next frost, none will recall alliances forged today." Arianne's eyes softened. "You speak like a king yet refuse the crown." "I speak like a man who has worn too many titles etched in other people's blood." Jon looked east where beyond the horizon, Winterfell's broken towers still haunted dreams. "If peace can be hammered without forging a throne, let it be so." She studied him, then set her goblet aside. "Come. The sand skimmers sail tonight for Ghost Hill, and Prince Dorne wishes you to bless their banners with dragonfire. Dornish superstition. Yet perhaps one more theater to sway hearts." Jon straightened. "Then we'll give them flame." He followed her beneath arching colonnades echoing with night frogs and distant strings. Somewhere behind, Rhaegal dozed curled around a marble dome, wings mantled protectively, while Drogon perched atop the palace's highest spire like a living gargoyle, his great head swiveling to watch the dark sea. 2 silhouettes against moonlight, guardian shadows promising dawn. Beneath those titans, Stark and Martell walked shoulder to shoulder into the glimmering labyrinth of palace corridors. Their path wound deeper toward torchlit slips, where swift ships waited to carry word of alliance across deserts and deltas alike. It was a fragile beginning carved in oath and spectacle, yet still only beginning. Far to the north, ravens would wheel above uneasy lords muttering of dragonlit skies. In the reach, ambitious petals opened greedily for sunlight of new power. In the stormlands, last bastions of stag pride whispered of vengeance and ironborn sails. But for this night, within Sunspear's jasmine-soaked gardens, 2 houses long sundered stood bound by flame and hope. Sand and snow, dragon and wolf. The realm held its breath, awaiting dawn's verdict. And Jon Snow, scarred by winter yet tempered by fire, felt an ember of something he had not dared name in many moons ignite at the heart of him. The fierce, trembling possibility that tomorrow need not mirror yesterday, and that he could yet wield his grief toward building rather than burning. He gripped Arianne's offered arm, and together they stepped onto the swaying deck of the lead skimmer. Rhaegal lifted his head, eyes glittering like emerald coals, sensing his rider's hidden resolve. Drogon rumbled approval high above. The sails unfurled. Moon-silvered wind filled them, propelling the vessel through hushed waters. As they cleared the harbor mouth, Jon raised one hand. In response, Rhaegal launched from palace roof, trailing a storm of displaced air. The dragon's chest swelled. A column of jade flame cut the night, painting the sea with lapping emerald reflections. Gasps rose from ships and seawalls alike. At Jon's side, Arianne's smile curved, not with triumph, but with wonder. "Let the world see," she murmured, "and let tomorrow be brave." Far ahead the endless desert waited, quiet beneath starlight, ready to test the mettle of wolves and suns alike. Cloudless dawn found Jon and Arianne crossing the deep desert aboard swift-footed sand steeds, their retinue of 100 Dornish spearmen fanning out in loose double echelon. Above, Rhaegal wheeled lazy circles, a great green banner of living flame keeping watch. Drogon remained at Sunspear, charged with guarding Prince Dorne. But the rumor of his presence surged ahead of them like a tidal bore. Every village they passed spilled its small folk into the streets, not to cower, but to gape with wide, fearful awe at the dragon darkening their day. Some knelt, others cheered. Many simply watched in stunned silence as the impossible became flesh overhead. Jon rode with reins slack, one eye always skyward. Yet his thoughts drifted to the north, to Sansa and Bran, and the tenuous peace coaxed from winter's ruin. The raven he'd sent bore news of the alliance across half a continent. What would his sister make of dragons over Dorne, of sand-bound pacts built upon fragile trust? He hoped she saw in it not hubris, but necessity. For if the Stormlands rose and the Reach faltered, if the Iron Throne's ghost still haunted men's ambitions, dragons might be the only wall between dawn and oblivion. Midday heat shimmered as they neared the Wailing Dunes. Shift-sliding hills whose wind-carved peaks resembled frozen waves. Here, a column of riders appeared on the horizon, spears tipped with blue silk streamers. Obara Sand at their head signaled welcome. When the parties met, Obara swung down, sweat-sheened brow, shadowed beneath a battered leather helm. Prince Doran's orders carried, she reported. 2 wagons of grain delivered to Ladytown. The Septon there wept, said no king ever fed Dorne. She gave Jon a pointed look, half challenge, half thanks. They'll carve your name into traveler songs if you keep at that. Jon dismounted. Sand grated under his boots. I need no songs, only stable roads and quiet borders. Obara snorted. In Dorne, songs pave roads and hearts alike. You'd best learn a tune, Snow. Arianne interceded before the sparring turned sharp. But, sister, you've ridden half the night. Take water and shade. She gestured to a white canvas pavilion being erected by guards. We'll rest before the final push to Ghost Hill. Obara allowed herself a tight smile. Aye, but tether your dragon far away, or hell spook the steeds. Jon glanced skyward. Rhaegal remained a distant green blur. Hell ranged the clouds. You've no cause to fear. I fear nothing born of egg or woman, Obara said. Yet she mounted again, spurring away to supervise her column's encampment. Arianne watched her depart with a sigh. She lost her mother to Tyrell raiders when she was 5. Trust comes hard as diamonds. Diamonds hold fast, Jon said quietly. Hard is not always ill. She studied him, then reached into her saddlebag and withdrew a scroll sealed in wax with the sun and spear. For you, my father's personal missive to Lord Garland. He requests a formal summit at Highgarden within the month to discuss shared borders. Jon accepted the scroll, tucking it beneath his bracer. So soon? The world shifts quickly when dragons fly. She smiled crookedly. Strike iron whilst still glowing. Jon felt a flicker of warmth, admiration perhaps, or gratitude. He had feared endless wheels within wheels of politics, yet Arianne cut through with deft precision, wielding pragmatism like a scimitar. He wondered how many nights she had spent preparing for this alliance, while the realm whispered only of her beauty and rumors of seduction. Underestimating her would be folly. They lingered in shade as canvas billowed overhead, sipping sweet water infused with mint. Jon watched the spearmen set sentries on dune crests, their spears winking bronze. In the hush between gusts, he heard Rhaegal's distant cry, felt it ripple through marrow like an echo of some long-forgotten battle hymn. And he wondered, could the realm truly hold beneath wings of flame, or would it fracture anew once the novelty faded? Ghost Hill awaited, with its black glass lighthouse and hidden coves, where smugglers whispered of rebel lords. Beyond, the boneway twisted, threatened by cell-sails he had vowed to deter. The path ahead sprawled into shadows thick with intrigue and blood. Yet for now, in this wedge of stillness carved from burning desert, Jon allowed himself one slow breath, free of past ghosts. The air tasted like lemon and salt and possibility. He closed his eyes and let the scent anchor him in the present. One heartbeat, one promise, one fragile alliance at a time. Sunset washed the dunes in hues of molten copper as the column crested a final rise. Below, Ghost Hill sprawled against Twilight Sea, a fortress of pale limestone shaped into sharp terraces and slender watchtowers fitted with black mirrors that caught the dying sun and set it aflame. Fires blossomed on ramparts as beacon keepers spotted the approaching dragon, their signals leaping from hill to hill like spillings of stardust. Jon guided Rhaegal downward in measured spiral, conscious of hundreds of arrows knocked but restrained by their captains. The dragon touched sand just beyond the gatehouse, talons kicking up gritty clouds that whipped across courtyards. Jon dismounted, removing his helm. Dust stung his eyes. Lord Ferran Jordain, lean as a whippet and famed for swift knives with quicker wit, strode forth. He knelt on one knee, an honor seldom given. Ghost Hill welcomes House Stark and House Targaryen reborn. He rose, meeting Jon's gaze with open curiosity. May your passage drive our enemies into specters of yesternight. Behind, Rhaegal's growl rolled across the walls, unsettling torches. Jordain flinched but carried on. Our outriders sighted black sails duskward, but they turned back upon seeing the great shadow overhead. Your plan works, it would seem. Jon offered a curt nod. Then let us press advantage before they gather more courage. Inside the fortress, courtiers spilled from arched halls, murmuring at the dragon prince steaming where talons had scoured stone. Children pointed, eyes huge. Old warriors touched palms to sword hilts instinctively. Jon strode beside Arianne down a processional lined with crimson banners bearing ghost sigils. Feasts had been laid across trestle tables, dates spiced with chili, bowls of fragrant yellow rice, roasted kid drizzled in honeyed wine. Yet Jon ate sparingly. He listened more, gleaning from whispers new hints of uprisings along the marches, of suspicious ravens arriving from King's Landing sealed in crimson wax. The Iron Throne's seat remained vacant by official decree, yet its ghostly pull still bent men's ambitions like iron filings to a lodestone. Jon sensed that in every hush when his back turned, in every courtier's measuring glance. After supper, he climbed the lighthouse's inner spiral. Atop the glass-paned chamber, sea wind blasted his face. Dark waves flecked with foam stretched into black infinity. Lantern fires dotted the boneway curve miles off, marking villages that would burn should cell sails land. He rested gloved hands on the parapet. Ghost padded near, fur rippling starwhite in the gloom, having slipped the castle unseen. Jon stroked the direwolf's ruff, silent companions against the vast hush. Below, torches flickered as Arianne emerged onto the rampart walkway. She paused, spotting him, but did not ascend. Instead, she beckoned, an invitation to rejoin the living world. Jon closed his eyes briefly, then descended. In the weeks that followed, Dragon's shadow became a common sun companion to Dorne. Rhaegal's patrols crippled the courage of would-be raiders, while Drogon's silhouette roosting at Sunspear turned would-be conspirators into restless watchers. Grain moved north from the water gardens. Timber came south from Tarth now that Blueburn pirates, spooked by wings overhead, sought easier prey eastward. Yet alliances were threads stretched taut over raging storms. At the marches, word arrived of a skirmish. Dornish outriders ambushed by knightly banners bearing the fiery Heartstag, a sigil extinct save where rebels clung to old loyalties. Jon rode to the vanguard within hours, leaving Arianne to hold Sunspear. The stark desert gave way to marsh, then to the cedar-forested foothills of the Rainwood, where restless summer storms bred. They found the wreckage of the ambush at dusk. 4 Dornish bodies strung from pine branches as carrion crows shrieked. Jon Scoot twisted with old northern rage. He ordered pyres lit, then tracked hoofprints churning mud northward. Rhaegal scoured ahead, roaring when he found enemy camps. Thus did word spread. The wolf-dragon hunts. Within 10 days, Jon cornered the rebel band near Stonehelm's crumbling watchtower. Under Rhaegal's glare, the rebels broke, casting swords into mire, kneeling, or sprinting only to be plucked screaming into the sky by green talons. Jon dismounted amidst surrendered men, ordering wounds tended, prisoners bound, not slaughtered. Mercy, he reasoned, would sow deeper fear in foes who expected fire. From captured letters he learned roads north of storms seeded with rumors that Jon's dragons would scorch every field from the Mander to the Greenblood once Dorne fattened on alliance. Someone stoked old hatreds, painting him tyrant in waiting. He thought of King's Landing's empty throne, who coveted it enough to fling realms into panic. He assigned Sir Davos to trace the letter's origin while he pushed east to Broad Arch, rooting out rebel caches. Each victory cost sweat, sleepless nights, but spared hundreds from open war. Yet each skirmish deepened Jon's burden. Mercy, too, weighed heavy when those spared might return sharper fanged. He slept little, haunted by Daenerys' ghost whispering of broken wheels that crush mercilessly. Near the moon's turn, missives came from Winterfell at last. Sansa wrote of northern harvests decent despite lingering chill, of northern lords wary yet hopeful of his southern pact, of Bran's silent meditations wedded to murmurs that the weirwoods stirred with restless dreams. She ended with 7 words, "I hope you find what we lost." Jon folded the letter over and over, staring at campfire sparks winking into night. What had they lost? Perhaps innocence or faith. Perhaps home. Might Dorne teach him to forge new meaning from ash and blood? He glanced toward Rhaegal, curled asleep beyond the watchtents. The dragon's slow breathing rose like distant surf, glowing embers painting scale after scale in shifting jade. Jon thought of ghost stories told in old Nan's voice, of winged shadows and ancient kings and desert suns. Yet here he lived among them, struggling to carve more than legend, to shape a future that none would call myth. He banked the letter into his cloak interior and turned to the war map, marking rebel nodes still untended. Tomorrow, dawn would bleed red across the marches, and the hunt would continue. But far away, beneath Sunspear's marble domes, Arianne penned her own letters. North to Highgarden, east to the Stepstones, even across the sea to Pentos where Sel's words weighed silver heavier than loyalty. Seeds scattered across sand, waiting for rain. And at King's Landing, behind smashed gates and ash-choked streets yet to be rebuilt, a council of grasping lords convened beneath tapestries, faded but still dripping power. They debated dragons and Dorne and wolves at their heels, and in every whisper, the Iron Throne's jagged outline glittered like a promise of absolution or ruin. Thus did the realm hold its breath, perched upon the edge where dragons' wings stirred storms unseen, and the alliance of sand and snow forged a path no maester's chronicle had dared script. Yet the tale, for all its flame and trembling, had only begun. A.K. The camp at Broad Arch lay in uneasy hush, the hush that falls on men too long beneath dragon wings yet still unsure whether those wings guard or judge them. Beyond the crude palisade of pine trunks, the rainwood crooned in 1,000 insect voices that swelled and subsided like a distant tide. From Jon's pavilion the lamplight shimmered through greased parchment walls, casting his silhouette bent over a war table strewn with rough charcoal maps and captured cipher scrolls. Ghost dozed at the entrance, ears twitching, nose quivering each time the rain-soaked wind shifted. A single candle remained, a lonely tower of wax now half-eaten by its own heat. Jon pressed thumb to the parchment's frayed edge again and again, feeling grain rough against callous until familiarity bred calm. 6 rebel nodes still scabbed the marches. Small things by a maester's quill, merely smudges and sigils, but each the seed of 100 blades and 100 widows. He would not allow them to fester into open war. Bootsteps approached. The canvas flap whispered aside to admit Sir Davos, his graying hair plastered by night's damp, his pale eyes worried. In his good hand, he clutched 3 smartly folded letters. The missing fingers on the other gave his silhouette an eerie half-ghost look in wavering lamplight. Riders from the east. Davos swallowed the honorific, knowing Jon bristled at King. From Blackhaven, he finished. Lord Karen sends word. Jon straightened. Read. Davos opened the first letter. Squinting. He begs pardon for aiding the rebels. Says his grain stores were plundered by sellswords flying the golden black stag. Took his sons hostage too. He names one Sir Ulrich Gower, a hedge knight with Storm Queen sympathies, as the leader. Karen offers you his keys, his coin, and his eldest daughter if you'll bring the lads back alive. Nan? Jon's expression went flinty. Keys and coin can stay in Blackhaven, but sons should not pay for father's fears. He reached for the map, pinning a stag sigil over Blackhaven. Where are those hostages kept? Davos unfolded the second letter. Same man. Sir Ulrich says he's marching north to the ruins of Nightsong, where the old stone stag tower still stands. Claims he'll wait 5 days, then ship the boys to Tyrosh for sale if no ransom comes. Jon tapped the location. Then we intercept on the march. Rhaegal can scout ahead. A column burdened by children cannot move fast. Davos' mouth twisted. Aye, but there's more. He raised the third letter, the wax seal crimson with a device unfamiliar. A stylized hourglass flanked by twin serpents, found pinned to our outer watch post. Whoever left it managed to pass 2 rings of sentries. Then, Jon accepted the parchment, noting exquisite vellum and superfine script. The game quickens. Wolf of Winter and Sunspear's flame. 3 moves remain before the board breaks. Beware the scorpion in ivory robes. Its sting is cloaked in mercy. A friend to neither dragon nor stag. Beneath the words, a sigil had been brushed in silver ink. An Ouroboros serpent biting its tail around a crown of 7 narrow points. Jon frowned. I've seen no crest like this. Davos shook his head. Nor I. But one scorpion in ivory robes can only fit a single spider's whisper. Mendanawan. Varys is dead. Spiders molt. Davos said darkly. Jon folded the parchment, sliding it into his cloak. Tag everything written about this sigil. And double the night guard. Whoever delivered it walked our camp like mist. As Davos left, Ghost rose, loosing a low growl. The direwolf padded to the open flap and stared into the murk beyond torch rings, as though sensing footfalls too soft for human ear. Jon stepped beside him, scanning dripping pines, rain-sheeted in silver veils. Nothing. Yet the hair on Jon's neck bristled. Dawn came restless, gray, and full of knife-edged wind. Before the tents were struck, the horn sounded thrice. Damned breakneck. Jon met them astride a saddled courser, Rhaegal circling overhead. The lead outrider dismounted, breath clouding, eyes round. Camp, m'lord. Abandoned moors 3 leagues north. Dozens of crows circling. We smelled iron on the wind. Jon swung into Rhaegal's saddle within heartbeats. The dragon rose like a storm-caught sail, tails of mist trailing. Below, Dog's Head Company, 50 mounted bowmen, galloped after Ghost, whose silent lope ate ground faster than any horse. They reached the meadow by mid-morning. Rain had ceased, leaving fog clinging to knee-high sedge. Dead men decorated the clearing, 11 in Stormland's mail, throats slit, laid out in semicircle around a scorched patch of turf. Near the scorched ground stood a tall, crooked wooden cage. Inside hung a man upside down, bound at ankle and wrist, his torso carved by a dozen thin cuts that had wept him dry through the night. Stark black gore puddled below, already congealing. Jon landed. His boots squelched in blood-soaked soil as he approached. Ghost sniffed warily. The corpse wore a Cohoric silk surcoat under splint armor. No hedge knight's garb but that of a wealthy sellsword captain. A scrap of parchment had been nailed to the cage beside his head. Jon tore it free. First move answered. 2 remain. Sick anger stirred in Jon's gut. He backed away, surveying slaughter. Some of the Stormlord's men looked executed. Others showed wounds of pitched melee. Yet not one Dornishman lay amongst them. Whoever struck had executed both rebel and ally indiscriminately, then left the message. He ordered burial pits dug and pyres built. When his men protested the effort among enemies' corpses, Jon said, "Leave them for beasts and you feed fear. Bury them and you bury hatred too." That silenced complaint, but whispers followed. Whispers that perhaps the Wolf King played some darker game, leaving messages for himself. By sunset, 2 pyres crackled twin pillars of oily smoke beneath blood-red sky. Rhaegal wheeled once overhead, roaring grief that rattled the charred cage until its timbers collapsed in flames. Jon watched embers spiral upward, like falling stars turned back. Each spark a life spent. 2 moves remain, the letter said. 2 more killings? He vowed not to play by unseen rules. He would unmask the player. Back at Sunspear, Arianne chafed beneath marble ceilings. Politics could grind men to meal, but waiting ground her sharper. She kept one ear to every corridor. The Tyrell envoys were due any day. The Reachmen, wreathed in green and smug courtesy, might clasp hands today and cut throats tomorrow. Their loyalty was a garden that bloomed so long as seasons smiled. If Jon bled in the rainwood and she failed to hold the capital, the alliance could drown in desert sand. Her maester brought fresh dispatches nightly, sell-sale captains claiming coin from faceless agents, rumors of a faceless assassin hired in Bravos, sightings of Qyburn's former black cells stirring under a new master. Every shadow lengthened. She responded by moving pieces of her own. Rainy Sand sailed under false flag to Old Town to hobnob with archmaesters thirsty to dissect dragon scales for curiosities. Her true mission was to sniff out who financed the Red Priests now preaching of a prophesied Ashen King who would inherit flame. Nymeria Sand traveled upriver to the Arbor Gold parties at Redwine Estates, smiling sweet while ferreting out gossip of alliances between Stonetree Ironborn and Storm's End loyalists. And Harmon Uller, the meanest, most silent of Arianna's cousins, rode with 20 of the Sand Steed's best to scout every pass north of Yarnwood. Should a single raven attempt the Boneway, Harmon's bow would answer. Yet each letter she penned to Jon, heavy parcels of strategy and confession both, seemed to vanish into the wilds. No raven returned bearing his seal. She grew to dread each star-flecked dawn. At Castle Blackhaven, Jon infiltrated by night. He left Rhaegal out of sight among mountain crags, then scaled Curtain Wall with Ghost. Wind-whipped cloak, carrying stink of wet moss. Overhead thunder grumbled. Inside, he found no highborn hostages. Only empty chambers littered with overturned benches, and one cowering scullion, who claimed the Caron boys had sailed a fortnight past, east, not north. Someone fed Jon false wind. He confronted Lord Caron at sword tip the next dawn. The Lord broke in tears, revealing a scribe had forged his seal on the ransom plea. The scribe's body turned up the same day, throat gnawed by dogs in a dung heap. So vanished another lead. Jon's patience frayed. Without pause he pushed along the Cape Wrath coast, interrogating fisherfolk, trailing sell-sale rumors to every storm-blown cove. He found footprints but never toes, each time arriving hours after ships lifted anchor, leaving only spent torches and black-feathered arrows in wet sand. One night near Tarth, a midnight horn blast hauled him from fitful sleep. Scouts dragged in a bruised girl in salt-stained rags. She claimed she'd stowed away aboard a Pentoshi galley carrying 3 noble youths, bound in silvered fetters, to the stepstones. Jon felt sick certainty. The Caron sons, perhaps, or the borrowed hostages fueling Stormlander rebellion. He booked passage on a swift Dornish Dromond. Under moonless sky they raced across the restless narrow sea. Rhaegal shadowed overhead, an unseen guardian cloaked by cloud. 3 days later, storm-lashed, they drew abreast of Black Peddler Rock, where pirate dens honeycombed caves. There Jon struck, sword and dragon together. Rhaegal's flame cauterized timbers while Jon's warband stormed plank bridges. The reek of burning pitch filled lungs, screams echoing in surf. They found the Caron boys indeed, bound but alive, plus 2 highborn Stormlander daughters and a squire of Housewild. The hostages sobbed as shackles shattered beneath Jon's mailed fists. But deeper still within a cave, they uncovered something far more chilling. A room carved into basalt, torchlit by eerie green candles. On an altar lay a faceless wooden idol, an hourglass crowned with serpents. Around it, charred bones arranged in concentric rings. At each quadrant, identical silver-inked parchment. Time devours all thrones. One more move. Jon ordered the idol shattered, the bones interred at sea. But the message weighed heavier than stone. 3 moves promised, 2 already blood-signed. Returning hostages to Blackhaven earned thunderous cheers. Yet Jon found no solace. He wrote to Arianne confessing the game, begging caution. Then, with Karen Levy's shoring Broad Arch, he flew north to Rainhouse, ancestral seat of House Goodbrook, where another letter from the friend waited. This one arrived in a raven's empty eye socket. The scorpion slumbers in cradle of marble. Break the sting before it pricks sun and wolf alike. He knew then the game's board was not the marches, but Sunspear itself. Someone hunted Arianne. Leaving Sir Davos to command the marches, Jon spurred Rhaegal south with all haste. Endless dunes rolled beneath night. Stars blurred overhead. Ghost, secured in padded harness behind Jon, huddled low as freezing air tore around them. They reached Sunspear at dawn's blush. Rising columns of smoke curled above the castle. Jon's heart plummeted. He landed within the Water Garden's inner court. Dornish guards knelt at once, but fear lived in every face. Jon strode through corridors lined with shattered pottery and scorch marks. Blood stuck footprints to marble. In the throne hall, he found Prince Dorne seated pale beneath smoke-dusted banners, color washed from his cheeks. Arianne stood beside him, a cut blooming red along her left arm, but otherwise unbroken. She turned as Jon entered, relief and fury entangled. "Where were you?" she demanded, voice raw. "Chasing ghosts," he answered. "Tell me." She closed eyes, steadying breath. Assassins in maesters' robes came under guise of plague doctors, ivory-beaked masks. They released a glass vial in the council chamber. Vapor scorched lungs. Men fell retching. We fought through cloud until Drogon broke the dome, letting air. Her throat bobbed. They went for the nursery, for my cousin Elias Babe. Jon clenched fist. Did they? Drogon found them first. Her gaze drifted toward fractured skylight. There's little left but bone, Prince Dorne rasped. This scorpion in ivory. Their masks bore hourglasses crowned in serpents. Older scrolls speak of an assassin's cult once patronized by Maegor the Cruel, the Kronos Brotherhood, sworn to erase lineages by slaughtering heirs. He fixed Jon with fever-bright eyes. They are risen anew. Jon produced the silver-inked notes. Arianne paled seeing them. Their enemy taunted from shadows still. That night Jon held council in the Dragon Rookery, beneath the watchful eyes of Drogon and Rhaegal. Arianne, arm freshly stitched, sat across oak bench. Prince Dorne listened from cushioned chair, and Sir Davos arrived via swift galley just before moonrise. Sand steeds captains lined walls. Jon began, "Our foe manipulates both storm rebels and cell sails, using hostages to lure me away while striking here. They worship time, this Kronos Brotherhood, and aim to break our alliance by pruning heirs. We must anticipate their final move." Then, Davos spread new maps. Ships bearing the Brotherhood's hourglass sigil loaded wagons at Old Town docks. Said bound for King's Landing with marble statuary. They sailed under charter of a rich Myrish merchant named Orus Valen. Arianne's brow furrowed. Valen owns the lifestone quarries on Dragonstone's north face. Jon's eyes narrowed. Dragonstone, my seat that stands nearly empty now I ride abroad. Realization struck like warhammer. The Brotherhood meant to strike Dragonstone next, perhaps to shatter Vagar's egg, perhaps to frame Sandwolf alliance by blasting the castle to rubble with wildfire hidden in statuary. Worse, Dragonstone's catacombs housed half a dozen orphaned children evacuated from King's Landing's ashes. Arianne gripped the table edge. We sail tonight. Davos shook head. Winds against us, but dragons flame the wind into servants. Take them. Jon looked to Rhaegal, then Drogon, who regarded them with ember eyes. Sunspear needs a guardian. Drogon stays with Prince Doran until I return. Rhaegal bears me. And an hour. Arianne rose. And me. Jon hesitated. If Dragonstone falls, you are Dorne's hope. Her answer was steel. If Dragonstone falls, this alliance is ash, with or without me. Prince Doran wheezed approval. Go, both of you. Sunspear shall endure beneath Drogon's shadow. Qyburn's daggers cannot pierce Dragonhide. Preparations whirred in frantic silence. Rhaegal was saddled with twin harness seats. Ghost lashed behind again. Before dawn's first saffron, Jon and Arianne soared north over moon-dabbled sea. Spray hissed beneath talons. They flew without rest, drinking water from bladders, nibbling salt beef, napping in turns lashed to saddle loops. By second dusk, Dragonstone's sulfur vents rose on horizon, plumes of black twisting. But another smoke joined them, an oily column billowing from the castle's seaward bastion. Jon's pulse hammered. He leaned low, urging speed. Closer, flames licked windows in the smithy quarter. Yet strangely little alarm rose from ramparts. No horns, no men scurrying. Jon smelled deception. He set Rhaegal down upon the outer courtyard, stone-hot beneath. A hush greeted them. No guards. Gates ajar. Ghost slipped free, nose low. A trap. Jon murmured. They advanced, swords bared. Ash drifted like dark snow from burning hay carts blocking inner passages. Smoke to hide approach, not to raise stone. In the gloom ahead, ivory-beaked masks, glinting. Arrows hissed. Jon spun, steel ringing as he knocked three aside. Behind, Arianne ducked, rolling to slit a masked throat with curved dagger. From galleries above, Brotherhood assassins loosed crimson vials that shattered at Jon's feet, releasing sickly green vapor. He dragged Arianne back. Rhaegal's roar rent roof as the dragon crashed through nave window, unleashing gust that scattered vapor. Timbers groaned. Assassins screamed as claws rent stone. Ghost launched, ripping at robe-wrapped legs. Jon leapt onto Rhaegal's lowered wing, springing into the gallery to engage. Steel flashed silver, masks clattered to flagstones. One assassin lunged with twin daggers coated in black oil. Jon parried, spin-kicked him over railing into Dragon's Maw Dada-Yi. Through smoke he glimpsed children bundled together behind upturned table, Dragonstone's orphans. Two robed figures prepared to torch the barricade. Jon hurled Longclaw like a spear. The Valyrian edge split one mask in half. Arianne surged past, hurling sandglass sachets that burst into blinding white powder. The second assassin reeled. She finished him with swift stab. More vials shattered behind, wildfire. Green tongues crawled across tapestries, hungry. Jon vaulted down, scooping two children under arms, urging the rest toward corridor. Arianne rallied them, shepherding into stone stair that led to terrace. Flames bloomed along roof beams as Rhaegal beat wings, casting wind but fanning embers too. Jon regained Longclaw, then sprinted the stair, Ghost at heel. Outside, sea breeze cooled skin slick with sweat. Arianne herded frightened children into stone-arched embrasure. From the battlement opposite, a lone figure emerged, tall, garbed head to toe in sand-white robes trimmed with gold. Ivory mask shaped like a scorpion's curved tail. He carried no weapon visible. Jon advanced. It ends here. A chilling laugh echoed. Ends? Time ends not, Dragon Wolf. It devours. The masked man untied his sash. Beneath hung braided cords of shimmering crystal vials, wildfire. One strike could shatter them all. Arianne hissed. Hell burn us and the children. Jon lifted sword. Release them. Face me only. The mask tilted. I am but moment-given flesh. You slay me, Another moment strikes. Better to burn the board and leave no pieces. He twitched a wrist. The crystal cords rattled. Wind gusted. Overhead Rhaegels screeched, banking wide. Jon measured distance. 15 paces. Too far to tackle before vials shatter. He raised empty left hand in supplication. Then at least, spare the innocent. Take me. Arianne's eyes widened. The assassin's head canted. Noble words, yet nobility tastes same as ash. A sudden growl. Ghost shot from shadows, clamping jaws on the assassin's calf. The man staggered, arms flailing. Jon moved, springing like coiled snowcat. Wildfire vials clinked, two cracking. Emerald flame ballooned, but a swirling updraft from Rhaegel's descent scattered fumes upward, sparing Jon. He collided, driving shoulder into assassin's chest, propelling both toward parapet. They smashed railing. Jon seized stone ledge with one hand, other clutching robe. Wildfire spurted along fabric. The assassin shrieked as emerald tongues raced up sleeves, mask blistering. Jon let go. The man plummeted screaming into black sea. Vials erupted mid-air, painting spray with ghost green fire. Jon hauled himself up, hacked burning robe fragments off coat. Arianne doused him with water bucket, then kissed his smoke-streaked cheek before she could think. Below, watchmen finally roused, horns sounding an echo. Rhaegel perched astride rookery spire, roaring victorious thunder that sent bats fleeing. Within hours the castle fires were quenched. Maesters tended coughing children, none perished. In the depths of night, as Jon sat weary upon the terrace, a surviving assassin was dragged forth. Mask shattered, jaw broken. He spat blood, but before Davos interrogators could speak, the man spluttered. "We fail, yet time ever turns. The hourglass reverses." Then he bit down on glass capsule hidden in tooth. Black liquid foamed. He died convulsing. No more answers. 2 days later, Jon and Arianne convened war council in Dragonstone's map chamber, its cracked obsidian table mirroring their haggard reflections. Outside, repairs clanged. Inside, figures of power assembled. Davos, Princeling Quentyn newly arrived from Sunspear, Lady Lyanna Mormont representing northern interests, Garland Tyrell with niece Leona standing witness, and Maester Samwell from the Citadel bearing lore tomes. Samwell wiped sweat, adjusting chain. I searched for Kronos Brotherhood records. Only fragment remains, founded 5 centuries ago by Maegor's ex-High Septon, who believed lineage breeds tyranny. They swore to prune royal branches so common folk might rule themselves. But in practice, they sold blade to highest bidder, seeking dynasties undone. And now, Garland paled. Someone wealthy funds them now. Old town bankers, free cities. Quentyn crossed arms. Or one of us. Eyes swept table. Suspicions spawned serpents. Jon quelled with raised hand. Enough. Whoever stands behind mask struck at Dorne. Stormlands, Dragonstone. Next, they'll choose a target that spirals war into full bloom. Perhaps Highgarden, perhaps Winterfell. Dai. Lyanna slammed small fist. The north is braced. If serpents crawl our snows, we bite back. Arianne sighed. Revenge only sows more bones. We must lure the master into light. Davos brightened. Offer bait too rich to ignore. A congress of heirs under one roof. Announce peace summit at Storm's End's old hall. Public, lavish, proclaiming heirs of Stark, Martell, Tyrell, Baratheon Fosters. The Brotherhood cannot resist one stroke to fell all. Garland knitted brow. We risk extinction. Jon met his gaze. Risk, yes. But with dragons above, Diru wolves below, and Tyrell archers on every tower, we might spring trap. Arianne considered, then nodded. Make the castle a stage. Invite petty lords, bards, poor folk. Witness everywhere. Murder thrives where shadows hide, but sunlight blinds. Thus the Wolfson Gambit conceived. Ravens flew that eve. Rumor flashed across kingdoms. Storm's End, once blasted by dragon fire and siege, would host unprecedented peace muster. Heirs, crowns, dragons, all under one patch of sky. Preparations devoured a fortnight. Storm's End still lay in ruinous half-repair after years of conflict. Jones builders arrived by barge, hauling planks and stone, raising grandstands facing sea. Ariane oversaw marquees hung with sand-gold ribbons. Garland's Tyrol masons planted green-roofed pavilions sprouting rose banners. Lyanna's Northmen rigged spike-lined trenches disguised with thatch to funnel attackers. Davos directed Dramans to patrol Bay of Shipbreakers for pirate sails. Most vital, dragons. Drogon transported Prince Doran and half Dornish spears north. Rhaegal ferried Jon, Arianne, and Ghost. They arrived 6 days before Congress. Locals gaped at the pair roosting on battlements. Children sang songs of wolf and sun. Jon stood on Storm's End rampart at dawning violet, gazing over the sea that had once swallowed Stannis' fleet. He remembered Maester Aemon's words long ago. Love is the death of duty. Yet here love, for realm, for family now broadened to include even Desert Queen, had become duty itself. He wondered if the old Maester would approve. Arianne joined, wrapping fur-lined cloak about thin Dornish silks. You brood, sky-worn storm, he murmured. Indeed, lead dark clouds rolled low, as though Shipbreakers Bay conjured its namesake for the day. We chose the most tempest-harried castle in Westeros, she teased. Fitting. He half smiled. Then his gaze snagged on the horizon. White sail glimpsed between waves, then another. See there. Soon spyglasses confirmed. A flotilla of 8 galleys under no heraldry approached. Davos Dramans altered course to intercept. Minutes crawled. Eventually green flags of parley unfurled from unknown ships. On the dock, Jon received their envoy. A small, plump woman cloaked head to toe in plain gray, face shadowed by hood. She bowed low. I bear words from my mistress to the Wolf King and Sun Queen. Her accent, Braavosi. Name? Jon asked. A girl has none, she said softly, drawing sharp breath. But my mistress names herself Daughter of the Hour. She lifted something wrapped in velvet. Guards tensed. She placed bundle into Jon's gloved hands, stepped back. A gift of trust. Proof that the hourglass cracks. Dante. Jon unwrapped. Within lay an ivory mask, scorpion tail broken off, stained with dry blood. The envoy continued. The Kronos Brotherhood fractures. Some believe prophecy fulfilled. Others doubt leadership. My mistress offers names of those who financed the Serpent Crown. In exchange she begs audience, unarmed, at tomorrow's summit, to speak truth before all. Arianne eyed Mask. Your mistress expects us to trust a faceless whisper. The envoy's lips trembled. She says only light of hundreds of eyes can slay shadow of a few. She pressed parchment. A list of 6 names, each a lord or merchant prince. At top, Oros Valen. Beneath, Lord Paramount Tobias Massey of Massey's Hook, Lady Rylene Swan of Stonehelm, Bank of Old Town's Marin Merrill, Triarch Uriamero Olantis, and Master of Coin Larry's Haraway of King's Landing. Jon felt chill deeper than sea wind. Haraway served on the Provisional King's Landing Council. Supposedly neutral steward of Realm's purse. He nodded slowly. We grant audience, but cross us and dragons burn ships to cinders. Then, the envoy knelt. A girl hears. She turned, slipping back to gig, rowing into swelling breakers. Congress Day dawned under bruised sky. Lords and ladies filled bleachers. Small folk thronged ramparts, perched like gulls. Tyrell trumpeters blared. Dornish drummers thundered. On central days, draped with both sun spear and direwolf banners, stood Jon in black leather worked with pale wolf, Arianne in flowing crimson that shimmered fire where light touched. To either side, Lyanna in full northern plate, Garland Tyrell resplendent in forest green, Prince Doran pale, yet resolute. Rhaegal and Drogon circled high, casting swooping eclipse each pass. Rumor held that the dragons would judge speeches by roar. If pleased, skies stayed calm. If displeased, they'd scream flame. Jon opened. He spoke of blood-drowned years, of fragile seedlings of peace, of duty owed to children yet unborn. He acknowledged wolves once hunted Dornish, dragons once burned stormlands, roses once choked deserts, but insisted tomorrow could trade swords for plows. His words rang steely, softened by hoarse honesty that silenced jeers. Arianne followed. She invoked Nymeria's crossing, 1,000 ships forging one kingdom out of exiles. She likened today to that voyage. Houses leaving harbors of hatred to brave uncertain seas toward shared shore. Her voice wove silk and steel, drawing reluctant nods. Then came the hooded envoy. Guards frisked her for weapons. None found. She stepped onto dais. Murmurs rippled. She threw back hood. A woman of early middle age, face plain but eyes fierce. I once wore ivory mask, she announced, voice carrying uncanny. I served Kronos Brotherhood, believing lineages so war. Yet I saw men who preached that creed slaughter infants for coin. She displayed a brand burnt into wrist, interlocked hourglasses. I renounce. She named conspirators. Haraway, Massey, Velen. Audience gasped, as each title echoed stone. Then she revealed final truth. The Brotherhood's ultimate design was not merely to kill heirs, but to unleash wildfire caches secreted under major keeps, including Highgarden. The stolen Terran boys bore false documents of a Martell Tyrell plot. Their death would ignite West into revolt, drawing Rhaegal and Drogon away, while saboteurs within King's Landing kindled the capital anew, framing dragons for apocalypse. Shock stabbed the crowd. Garland's face blanched. Lyanna's hand dropped to axe. Before outcry crescendoed, crossbow twanged. Bolt hissed across dais, embedding in envoy's chest. She staggered. Chaos erupted. Screams. Scuffles. Guards sweeping stands. Jon caught her as she fell. Blood gurgled at lips. Tie me. Reversed. She whispered. Break. Wheel. Then she died. At once drums pounded. Enemy horns beyond walls. From shipbreakers' bay surged black-sailed galleys vomiting men in ivory masks. Storm's End trenches erupted. Saboteur within launching firepots. Yet prepared Northmen cut them down. Trenches funneled attackers into kill lanes where Tyrell longbows shredded ranks. Rhaegal shrieked, diving in verdant flame arc that incinerated siege ladders. Drogon landed amid trebuchet crews, scattering them like ants. Jon drew Longclaw, leapt from dais, rallying defenders. Arianne drew dual daggers, slicing through masked warriors. On beachhead, Davos Drummond slammed invading ships, grappling hooks locking prows, soldiers clashing decks. Above, storm finally broke, rain lashing, thunder booming like drum god. In melee, Jon faced a towering figure in gilded hourglass helm, Oros Valen himself. The merchant prince wielded double-bladed polearm dripping wildfire. Each sweep left emerald afterghosts. Jon ducked, rolled, sliced halved. Sparks hissed. Valen laughed, pivoting lithely despite bulk. The wolf plays general, he sneered. But even time marries sand. Your dragon cannot save you from every moment. None. Jon answered with silence. Footwork, blade. Rain quenched wildfire flicks. Velen pressed, snarling. Jon deflected, stepped inside, slammed pommel into helm visor, caved metal. The prince reeled. Jon kicked knee sideways, bone snapping. As Velen fell, Jon buried Longclaw to hilt. A wave crashed, smothering corpse. Meanwhile Arianne fought through broken ranks towards Siege Tower, where arch-conspirator Lord Massey rallied men. She vaulted onto boarding plank, slashed ropes, tower tipped seawards. Massey screamed as structure splintered, plunging him onto rocks. Thunder rolled. Lightning struck mast, igniting canvas. Dragons roared overhead, embers against gloom. Within hours, beach burned with wreckage, masked corpses littered sodden sand. Inside hall, Maester triads exposed Lord Harroway's cipher communings. 24 ledgers linking King's Landing treasury to Brotherhood cells. Guards seized him that night beside chest of stolen wildfire vials. Storm's End dawned crack blue, smelling of rain-cleansed smoke. Survivors gathered on rampart, faces streaked soot and tears. Jon clasped Arianne's blood-spattered hand, raising it high. The crowd, Northmen, Dornish, Reachmen, Stormlanders, cheered as one, not for throne, but for deliverance they had wrought together. Prince Doran proclaimed a pact, Dragonstone Accords binding signatories to mutual defense, trade, and open courts. Tyrell emissaries pledged harvest grain to Dorne, Dornish water rights to Reach, northern lumber to Stormlands. Bank of Bravos offered loans at fairer terms, eager to woo new leadership. Maesters predicted skeptically that alliance would fracture within a decade. Yet for now, hope glimmered. Children freed from Dragonstone Orphanage placed wildflowers at Rhaegal's talons. The dragon snorted, baffled. Jon spent twilight on battlement alone until Arianne joined. She rested head on his shoulder. 5 hours of speeches is nothing next to 5 centuries of war. Yet I feel stillness like calm heart. Jon ran thumb over her bandaged arm. Stillness earned. He gazed seaward where sun slid molten into waves. Drogon soared through ruddy sky, Rhaegal trailing. 2 shadows merged, then parted, painting ripples with overlapping wings. Arianne whispered, "The wheel may not break today, but perhaps it turns slower." Jon thought of Maester Aemon again, of love and duty merging. He watched dragons dance above a realm neither fully healed nor wholly doomed. And for first time since snow cloaked his childhood, he allowed himself a breath of peace. Night settled purple-blue. Torches flickered along curtain walls, but beyond them, the horizon glowed faint gold where storm clouds had parted. Promise of dawn. The game had changed. Time itself had learned new rhythm. Wolf beats, dragon beats, sunlit beats, marching not toward doom but toward horizon alive with possibility. Jon clasped Arianne's hand. Together they turned from rampart, descending stone steps toward hall where lords awaited. War still smoldered, but within its embers the first sparks of a gentler fire caught. The fire of a realm daring to imagine tomorrow less cruel than yesterday. Behind them, dragons roared, not warning, but benediction. Oh, Jay. Dawn's pale fingers reached over the battlements of Storm's End, trailing soft gold across stone still damp from the night's rain. The salt wind brushed Jon's face, carrying the distant cries of gulls and the faint clang of carpenters, already repairing pock-marked walls. He stood alone upon the highest parapet, long claw sheathed at his hip, watching Rhaegal and Drogon circling far out to sea. Their silhouettes cut dark crescents across the first light, wheeling over the wrecks that still smoldered on the tide. Even after the roar and clash had faded, the smell of pitch and charred oak lingered like a ghost haunting every breath. Below, the courtyards thrummed with new purpose. Reach masons sang as they hauled sandstone. Dornish engineers plotted sluice work for fresh cisterns. Northern carpenters, faces ruddy in the unfamiliar warmth, raised framework for granaries. Painted banners of wolf and sun snapped side by side on ropes newly spliced and tarred against the sea air. Somewhere near the stables, Lyanna Mormont drilled a knot of Stormlander squires, her barked commands punctuated by clangs of practiced shields. The Congress triumph had condensed the realm's fears into something strangely fragile, like frost traced across a window pane at sunrise, beautiful for the moment, perilous with a touch. Jon closed his eyes. In the hush between gull cries, he could almost hear Winterfell's godswood, the creak of ancient weirwood limbs, the hush of snow against pine, Sansa's careful voice dictating letters, Bran's raven wings rustling through branches no southern breeze ever touched. The distance felt longer than leagues. He wondered what the ravens he'd sent carried across that distance, whether his words, heavy with war and dragons and the scent of Dornish spice, felt like a stranger's breath on winter air. He breathed out, tasting salt and ash and rain, and opened his eyes. Footsteps approached, soft, measured, dusting grit without haste. Ariane Martell joined him at the parapet, wrapped in a cloak of deep crimson lined with wolf-gray fur. Sea breeze teased loose strands from her dark braid, drawing errant curls around flushed cheeks. She rested gloved palms on the ancient crenellation, studying the sea with eyes still bright from scarce sleep. "Your builders have already erected a scaffold over the outer gate," she said, voice low and calm. "By noon there will be scaffolds at every breach. Storm's End may outshine Dragonstone once they finish." Mensa widened. Jon tilted his head, studying her profile. "It was a fair castle long before I ever saw it. I'm only mending cracks." "Cracks can become doors," she replied, watching Drogon's distant arced eye. "And doors can become roads." He almost smiled. "A Dornish proverb? A lesson from my mother." Her fingers drummed the stone. An unthinking rhythm. "She told me peace is not built on victory. It is built on habit. You must lay stone upon stone until the enemy forgets there was ever a divide. Then one morning you wake to find you live in the same house." She turned, dark eyes seeking his. "Will the North accept that habit?" "They will accept what keeps the winter from their bellies," Jon said. "And dragons in the sky may be the only walls that matter soon." Ariane studied him, then the sea. "Your sister Sansa writes each week. She asks about water rights, about Tyrell trade lanes, about the health of our vines. She measures trust in careful questions." A faint smile showed. "I rather like her letters." Jon felt warmth spread behind his ribs. She is her mother's daughter. She counts every grain before trusting a miller. "Mender day." "As she should." Ariane sighed. "Yet trust must travel faster now, or old wounds will outrun us." He nodded toward the roiling horizon. "That storm last night, when the thunder rolled and ships burned, I thought of the wall. When the wind screamed through frozen stones, men felt small but safe behind ice. Here, stone isn't enough. Only the sky stands between us and ruin." He gestured at the dragons riding currents. "They answer to fewer men than there are crowns." "Perhaps," Ariane agreed. "But they answer to you." Jon shook his head. "They answer to something older than any of us. I only guide the fire." She watched his face, searching. "Do you fear them?" "I fear what they could become in the wrong hands." His gaze lingered on Drogon's black silhouette. "Or in no hands at all." A hush stretched between them, filled by gulls' cries and the surf crashing against the cliffs far below. The last ember coals of night fled the stones, leaving only bright, salt-washed day. Ariane brushed dust from the sleeve of his cloak, then straightened. "Come," she said. "Prince Doran holds council in the Shield Hall. Garland Tyrell has a plan to chase what remains of the Brotherhood into the Stepstones." "Nah, was so." Jon's mouth tightened. "When last we chased them, they slipped between shadows. We burned half a cove and found only corpses." "Corpses cannot scheme," she said, turning toward the stairway. He followed. "But men who fear corpses can. Volantis hides its triarch behind red sails. Old Town cloaks its coin in parchment seals. We need more than swords." "We need a net," Ariane agreed. "And bait they cannot resist." They descended the narrow stair that wound inside the drum tower, torches flickering in sconces. At the landing, 2 Dornish spearmen snapped to attention. Jon noticed new orange and white badges stitched at their shoulders. Sun, spear, and dire wolf intertwined. Habit, he thought. Stone upon stone. The Shield Hall, once Stannis Baratheon's grim chamber of banners, had transformed. Carpets of Martell gold and Tyrell green covered the cracked tiles. A long oaken table dominated the center, strewn with maps weighted by smooth river stones. Prince Doran sat at the far end, wrapped in a heavy wool cloak, despite the warmth, his cheeks waxy but eyes clear. Beside him, Garland Tyrell and Lady Leona conferred in low tones. Davos stood near the hearth, idly warming his hands while Maester Samwell adjusted candles to chase lingering shadows. All conversation paused when Jon and Ariane entered. Garland inclined his head. Samwell smiled, Davos gave a crisp nod. Prince Doran beckoned. "Lord Snow," he said, voice thin but resolute, "we were just speaking of false tides." Jon approached, taking the chair offered by Davos. "False tides, your highness? Pirate sails, forged in Myr, bearing Reach colors," Garland explained, rolling a parchment print. 24 sighted off Cape Tempest 3 days past. They skim coastlines at twilight, pillaging fishing villages, leaving ravens with Tyrell gilt pinned to corpses. Arianne's eyes narrowed. The Brotherhood wants the realm's new bonds strained. Dornish smallfolk will not soon forget Reach colors on raiders. "So," Jon said, "we show them the colors were painted on stolen cotton, nothing more." He traced a line upon the map. "Cape Tempest sits between Stepstone's Lanes and the Arbor. If we push a small fleet here," he tapped a shoal-stippled bay, "we can bracket them." "Too blunt," Arianne countered. "They'll scatter like surf birds." She glanced at Garland. "What of your Arbor swan ships?" "Lightweight, swift," he said. "But few outriggers. Not suited for pursuit." Jon considered. "Then lure them. Put out rumor of Tyrell gold convoy to Sunspear. Grain secured by a single Drummond. Let them bite. We hide Regal above the clouds, and drop him once they board." Garland blinked. "Burn my own grain?" "Burn their lies," Jon corrected. "We need proof. Survivors and painted sails both." Prince Doran gave a faint nod. "Let the Brotherhood drown in their own theater." Samwell coughed softly. "A word of caution. Too much dragonfire at sea can turn witness to ashes. Not all sailors can tell one house flame from another. The small folk may see only dragons reaping ships." Jon acknowledged. "Then Rhaegal's flame is the last resort. First we seize the captain who bears the forged banners. A confession broadcast from his own lips will quiet rumors." "Mentor." Garland spread his hands. "I can spare 4 Arborhawks. Davos, can you persuade the Black Betha's old sisters to run guard?" The former smuggler grinned, missing teeth showing through trimming white beard. "Aye. Those girls still bite wind like hounds on scent." He planted a wooden finger on the parchment. "Set the gold convoy to drift slow. Meanwhile, my beauties ride dark of moon on either flank. Once the rats swarm the cheese, snap, ta-da." Plans coalesced in the hum of strategists' urgency. Sail charts, wind patterns, signals for dragon descent. Jon saw the alliance's muscles flex. Northern grit, Dornish cunning, Reach pockets, Stormlander shore eyes, Tyrell sails. Habit indeed. The council adjourned by mid-morn. Arianne walked with Jon through the outer corridors, where sunlight dappled tapestries shifting in the breeze. She paused beneath a high-arched window overlooking practice yards filled with sweaty lads exchanging spear blows under Lyanna's hawkeye. "Do you think they'll follow you?" she asked quietly. Jon watched a boy from Ashford block a thrust, stumble, right himself, try again. "You mean the realm?" "I mean them." She nodded to the yard where banners of 5 houses mingled without bloodshed. "Boys taught that Dornish blood is snake's blood. Northern blood is frozen. Reach blood is warm like milk. Now they trade blades and japes. But when they go home, will they remember today's sweat or yesterday's fear?" Jon exhaled. Memory flickered. The brothers of the Night's Watch, criminals and lords alike, fighting side by side until vows mattered more than names. He had thought those days dead with the wall's quiet ruin. But here glimpsed an echo. "It depends who teaches them when they march home," he said. "If lords whisper about dragons devouring gold, they'll fear. If lords feast them under banners knotted together, they'll remember sweat." Arianne brushed his knuckles with hers. "Brief, private. Then we host feasts until they tire of singing." Her smile turned sly. "And you will dance at least once, Snow." He raised a brow. "Stark men don't dance." "Stark kings must," she teased, moving on toward the maester's wing. That evening, an unexpected raven arrived from White Harbor. Jon recognized Maester Theomore's spidery hand as soon as the parchment unrolled. "Kinda." The words chilled him. "Reports of pale ships along northern coasts. Sigil unknown. Hourglass crowned with serpents. Small folk vanish from villages. Fear spreads. Lord Manderley requests immediate aid or counsel. He read it twice, jaw tightening. Samuel lingered nearby, catching his expression. More brotherhood? Sam asked. Or someone wearing their mask? John handed him the parchment. If they set foot in the north, they ignore my warning. Sam's brows knitted. You can't chase every shadow. But this, White Harbor is vital. Grain flows south through its docks. John stared at the hearth for a long beat. Flame casting sharp lines across scar on his cheek. I need eyes I trust on those docks, he said. Can you ride north? Sam's mouth opened, closed, then firmed. I can, but ravens fly swifter. Ravens don't wield quills like yours, John said. You served the watch beside me. You know my family. They'll open doors. Nem's you. Samuel squared shoulders, surprising himself with the steel in his spine. Then I leave at dawn, but send someone fierce on my flank. Brotherhood dogs may nip at heels. John glanced to the sparring yard. Lyanna Mormont parried 2 squires at once. Snarling commands. A half smile touched his lips. I know just the escort. The feasts came, as Arianne promised, and with them a season of uneasy celebration. Each sunset saw the great hall roaring with drums and harp strings. Tyrell singers harmonized with Dornish pipers, while northern limericks spurred Stormlander fists thumping trestles. John, coaxed by Arianne and a merciless Lyanna, danced one set with Leona Tyrell, nearly treading the poor girl's toes into paste. Laughter eased distrust, even if the laughter was sometimes brittle. Outside Storm's End, the realm bent slowly toward new habits. Small folk from Tarth to Ashford began trading Dornish citrus for Reach barley. Caravans of Martell figs wound north escorted by Stormlander bowmen. Letters bearing both direwolf and sunspear seals reached holdfasts once barred in fear. Across the Red Mountains, watch beacons stayed dark for the first fortnight in memory. Shepherds drove flocks through Hellholt Pass without bribing spear points. Bards already coined songs. The Pact of Sun and Snow. The 2 Egons returned, the dragon's wedding though no wedding had been spoken. Yet beneath the revelry's surface, currents rippled. Garland scouts tracked Brotherhood survivors retreating deeper into the stepstones, forging alliances with pirate kings who hoarded wildfire. Bravosi whisper buyers flooded King's Landing's black markets, paying twice the rate for Valyrian relics rumored hidden in ruined manses. And in Old Town, the high-sept candles flickered over cryptic sermons about prophecies kindled in Dragon's breath. Peace was no fortress, only a bird delicate in newly cured wings. John kept vigil. Each dawn he rode Rhaegal above Shipbreaker's Bay, scanning for strange sails. Each dusk he read Raven scrolls. Sam and Lyanna reached White Harbor, uncovered traces of night landings at abandoned whaling docks, and captured one sailor bearing serpent-crowned hourglass tattoo. Under candlelight, Sam's letters spoke of an altar discovered in a sea cave north of Seal Rock, bones arranged in spinning wheel pattern, and of whispers that a Snow King would rise drowned in green fire. John clenched each report, feeling ancient winter stirring in marrow, though the sun baked warm above Storm's End. One twilight, as gulls wheeled and fish scales glittered along horizon pools, John found himself alone in the rookery tower. He held a sealed scroll addressed to Bran. He had written, sealed, unsealed, rewritten, until wax crumbled at edges. The scroll bore 12 lines, each crossing out the previous, until only 5 words remained. Is the song finished yet? He did not know what answer he expected. He closed fist around parchment, pressed it to his brow, then tied it to the leg of a patient white raven. The bird regarded him with ink-dark eyes, then sailed out into rose-lit sky. Below, torches kindled across Storm's End like new-sprung stars. He watched them flicker to life, one after another, until the dark swallowed the ocean and a hush draped the castle. Somewhere deep inside, minstrels tuned lutes for the evening's feast. but their notes barely reached the heights. Soft footfalls on the stair. Ariane emerged, cloak around shoulders, hair unbound. The last beams of day caught fire in her curls. She joined him without word, crossing arms on sill beside him. Together they watched the stars prick through twilight. "Do you ever fear quiet?" she asked at length. "Often," John said. "Night before a storm is quiet." A puff of laughter. "You know storms?" He inhaled sea salt. "I know they end." Silence again. Then Ariane spoke, voice like the whisper of silk across sand. "Prince Dorne wishes us to travel to Highgarden within the month. Garland will host a harvest fair, wine, dancing, archery contests. Symbol of this new leaf." She folded hands. "He wants us to stand on dais together, wolf and son. Some will see promise. Some will see threat." John studied the horizon where day bled from lavender to indigo. "What do you see, Ariane?" She turned, met his eyes. "I see duty's shape changing," she said. "I see a man northborn carrying deserts on his shoulders. I see a woman of hot sands walking icy roads. I do not yet know if they walk together or side by side." He considered. Perhaps roads converge. Perhaps. A breath. "I meant to ask." She hesitated. For once her certainty faltered. "You still wear no crown?" John touched the smooth leather circlet around his brow. Plain, unadorned, save a single carven dire wolf head. "Not a crown. Simply a rider's band to keep hair from eyes." "Crowns chase heads," he said. "I would rather chase peace." "In Dorne," she said, "we crown the hearts we trust, not the brows." He almost smiled again. "And what shape is that crown?" "Soft," Ariane whispered. "And fierce." She reached, touched his hand atop the stone. He allowed the warmth, felt the pulse of something that was not strategy, not politics, not the hollow echo of ghosts. Her thumb brushed calloused knuckles once, twice. The castle below seemed to hush, listening. A roar shattered the moment. Regal banking low across the tower, wings booming like thunder. John looked up as the dragon climbed, seeming to chase a star newly born in the east, bright, cold, untouched. He watched until green scales vanished into velvet night. Ariane's hand slipped reluctantly from his. "Come. If you do not eat soon, the Northerners will assume the Martells poison their allies with hunger." She winked. "And I promised Lady Lyanna that you would finish the hare pie she won in the archery wager." He sighed, resigned. "Lead on." They descended the tower together, torches guttering overhead, their shadows long on stone. Somewhere behind them, the white raven dwindled into the north, wing beats carrying 5 uncertain words across leagues of sleepless realm. The convoy trap at Cape Tempest sprang beneath a sliver of moon. A calm hush lay over the mirrored sea. Too calm, Davos always said, for honest business. The lone Drummond, sails furled, floated as if becalmed, lanterns hooded to faint glow. Hidden within the hold waited 10 reach crossbowmen, their quarrels silver-tipped and poison-barbed. Above the clouds, Rhaegal held station in gliding circles, scales catching moonlight in quicksilver flashes. Long past midnight, dark shapes glided out of the east. Pirate galleys cut low for speed, sails painted with green roses. They approached silent, save for paddles' rhythmic dip. When within arrows' whisper, grapnels hissed, biting the Drummond's rail. Boarders swarmed, ragged men in salt-stained mail, faces smeared pitch black, serpentine hourglass ink on throats. Davos hawks rose from shadowed shoals, oars chopping foam. The pirates realized snares too late. Crossbows snapped from hidden doors. Grapnel ropes severed, men tumbled into black water. Rhaegal stooped then, but flame held. Jon had ordered capture. Instead the dragon's shriek shattered resolve. Half the raiders dove overboard before the first swords crossed. Within one turn of the sandglass, the deck was strewn with shackles. The pirate captain, a gaunt Myrish man with silver studs in scalp, spat curses until Davos' fist broke teeth. Pressed to the mast, he confessed under threat of being dangled for dragon bait. A Brotherhood cell based on Broken Shield Isle paid them in Tyroshi rubies to so reach Dorne discord. The rubies coffers lay there still, he swore, guarded by sellswords who burned sigils from their shields. At dawn, Jon read Davos' report in the Council Solar, eyes narrowing. Broken Shield Isle sat less than 2 days' swift sail from Stepstone's channels, close to the Myrish toll lanes that ferried slaves and secrets alike. If the Brotherhood hoarded wildfire there, it might torch half the summer sea's trade before winter. Garland urged immediate assault. Arianne counseled caution. Spies in Mare could be roused to watch, then strike with precision. Prince Doran, however, saw opportunity, crush the final nest decisively, and deny rumor fresh venom. Jon weighed. "We strike," he said, rolling the chart. "But silent and quick. Rhaegal smothers their sails. Tyrell hawks cut escape. Dornish spears cleanse tunnels. No wildfire must ignite." Planning consumed another week. Ravens darted between Storm's End, Sunspear, Highgarden, and Old Town. At White Harbor, Sam sent word of strange alchemical residue found in cave chambers. Wildfire's dormant salts mingled with powdered valerian leaf, a mixture believed extinct since Maegor's reign. The Brotherhood's alchemists had revived forgotten arts. Jon redoubled pace. He trusted none but himself to end such threat. His mother's name, Lyanna, had once ignited a realm. Wildfire could ignite more. 3 days before the fleet's departure, a rider arrived from King's Landing bearing missive, with the Provisional Council's seal. Inside, summons for Jon Snow to testify before the Iron Throne's steward regarding the dragon's role in recent conflicts, accusations of unauthorized use of wildfire in the Stepstones trap, demands for custody of prisoner Haraway. The letter dripped, veiled threats of treason if he refused. Jon read it twice, then handed it to Arianne. She tore it into strips. "Let them come fetch their prisoner if they dare." She said. But Jon felt the pull of the throne's ghost, its iron claws still dug in every law, every rumor. He sensed a war of parchment rising even as sword war faded. He resolved to answer ink with ink, send Davos to King's Landing bearing treaties, confessions, painted sails, charred hourglass masks. Let quills vouch for dragons. Davos agreed, though his beard bristled. Courts bend, he warned, but they do not break, unless hammered by coin or fire. Jon clasped his shoulder. "We send both, Tyrell coin, Dragonfire's shadow. No one need die if they believe they might." The night before Davos sailed, Jon found Arianne in the castle's godswood, an old Stormlander oak grove clinging to salty cliffs, far from northern weirwoods. She knelt beneath a twisted oak, fingers tracing bark, lips murmuring Dornish prayer to the mother. Moonlight silvered tear tracks on her cheeks. Jon paused beneath arch, uncertain. She sensed him, rose, brushing knees. "My cousin Elias babe still wakes with night terrors. I prayed she dream of water gardens tonight instead." Jon stepped closer. "Dreams sometimes obey prayer," he said, though he was never sure. Arianne folded arms. "When I was a child, I believed a song whispered beneath every shell on the beach. The voice of Nymeria guiding exiles home. Now I know the sea sings only for itself. Yet I listen anyway." She lifted eyes. "Do you?" "Every night," he said. 8 Castle Black. "I listened to the wind for the dead's march. In the Riverlands, I listened for wings I feared would burn us all. Now I listen for a silence I can trust." "Nine?" "Now." Her gaze softened. "And do you?" He hesitated. Closer than before. Arianne stepped forward, rising on toes, brushed her lips to his cheek. "Salt, warmth, promise. May your silence tonight be gentle." She turned, cloak swirling, and left the grove. Jon remained under the oak's crooked limbs, listening to waves shatter the cliffs. Somewhere distant, a lonely horn sounded. Storm's End watch changing guard. He closed eyes, letting breeze comb hair. Silence felt gentle indeed. The fleet to Broken Shield sailed under no banner, save night. 4 hawks leading. 2 dramans laden with Dornish spears behind. Jon atop Rhaegal flying high where few eyes could discern dragon from cloud. Garland commanded from the Lady of Vines. Arianne rode the Sand Spear flagship, its hull painted in shifting ochre motes that mirrored desert mirage. Approach came in pre-dawn gloom. Broken Shield Isle emerged from fog, a jagged crescent of basalt cliffs, seabird whitewash gleaming faint. Fires burned mid-isle. Kiln chimneys or watch beacons. Garland's lanterns blinked signals, oars dipped, sails spilled wind. Silence wrapped the assault. Archers loosed flaming shafts onto the nearest watchtower. Sparks blossomed, catching pitch-soaked rope nets. Panic shouts echoed. Before garrison could raise horns, Dornish skiffs scraped black sand beach, spears pouring. Jon circled above, scanning for green glow caches. He spotted wagons covered by burlap near the central forge. He descended. Rhaegal's talons crushed timber stockades. Men fled. Jon slipped from saddle, Longclaw swinging, carving path toward wagons. A masked alchemist darted to ignite a jar, but Ghost lunged from shadows, dragging him down. Jon slashed the alchemist free of hand. The jar rolled harmless. Within minutes, resistance collapsed. Garland's hawks swept cliffs, cutting retreat. Prisoners knelt in slag pools, wrists bound. Arianne strode from forge, dragging the gaunt stepstone's prince by hair. She flung him at Jon's feet. "Master of fire and bones," she sneered. He named himself Chronarch. Jon hauled the prisoner up. "The Brotherhood dies tonight. Where is its true master?" The man laughed, teeth stained green. "Beyond time's loop," he rasped. "A wheel never breaks. It only turns unseen." Jon handed him to spears. "Then you ride its rim into the sea." At dawn, the Isle's wildfire caches were rolled to the shallows, casks pierced, contents bled into surf under watch of dragons. Seawater hissed emerald flames but smothered them. No cask remained unquenched. Every scroll of formula burned to ash. The Brotherhood's last forge smoldered down to slag. On the return voyage, Jon stood at Lady of Vine's prow with Garland, watching gulls wheel over the steaming island left behind. "Will songs remember this?" he asked quietly. Garland shrugged. "Songs crave glory, not cleanup. They'll sing of dragons at storm's end, not ship bilges of wildfire." "Menati." "Let them," Jon said. "I prefer quiet victories." Back at storm's end, cheering greeted the fleet. Yet even as musicians tuned triumph notes, ravens arrived from King's Landing. The Master of Laws demanded Haraway's immediate transfer to the capital for impartial trial. Davos, still en route, had been delayed at sharp point by storms. Jon read the scroll, weighed ink threats of attainder against tapestry of fragile alliances. He summoned Arianne to the painted solar at dusk. Candlelight danced across doubly sealed letters on the desk. When she entered, he pushed one toward her. "They think they can pluck threads until the tapestry unravels." Arianne scanned demands, scoffed. "Impartial? The throne's shadow still lies across their parchment." She squeezed wax pendant at her neck. "The realm's heart beats here now, not in rusted ruin of the capital. They must learn." Jon paced. "We could ignore, but silence can be painted guilt. Then send truth, not prisoner." Arianne's eyes glimmered. "Hold open council, invite the capital's septons, maesters, merchants. Let them see Haraway judged by his victims, the realm's new court. If King's Landing wishes justice, let them ride to storm's end." "Mendoen Sao." Jon halted, absorbing. Make them come to us. And crown the habit," she said softly. He met her gaze, understanding. They would not seize power. They would seat it in plain sight, on boards of cedar overlooking the sea, beneath dragons watchful but silent. Authority by invitation, not conquest. Summer's tail arched over Westeros as harvest neared. Fields east of the Mander ripened gold. Dornish vineyards blushed heavy with wine-sweet promise. Under banners knit of wolf and sun, Caravans passed the Boneway unmolested. Small folk along the Stormland's coast began naming their newborns after dragons. Rhaegar, Erisa, marks of awe shading into acceptance. At Highgarden's harvest fair, music spilled from every terrace of the ivory rose keep. Lords and ladies wandered hedge mazes scented with orange blossom. Small folk sampled sweetgrass mead. Children chased each other with wooden spear suns painted bright. On the grand dais overlooking the tournament yard, Jon and Arianne sat side by side beneath an arch woven of lilies and desert jasmines, their thrones simple oaken chairs polished smooth. When Sir Garland crowned Lady Leona champion of the archery, the crowd roared. Jon rose, took the silver circlet, studded with pearl and onyx, placed it gently upon the girl's brow. She flushed crimson, curtsied low. Then Arianne stepped forward and raised Jon's hand high. Trumpets sounded. A choir of Reach and Dornish singers blended harmonies never before heard. Some plaintive, desert-born, some lush as river valleys. The sun sank behind castle ramparts, drenching scene in molten amber. For one breathless moment, it seemed the realm truly stood still beneath shared joy. That night, under canopies strung with lanterns, Jon danced again. This time willingly, with Arianne upon a floor scattered with rose petals. Drogon and Rhaegal dozed atop Highgarden's highest turrets, their shadows cast like protective wings over revelry. Hours later, when torches burned low and musicians retired, Jon and Arianne slipped into the dew-silvered gardens. They walked among moonlit fountains until they found quiet bench beneath weeping willow. Crickets sang, distant laughter drifted soft. Arianne traced the carved wolf at Jon's cloak clasp. Bento Nayundiri. Lord's whisper of marriage. She murmured. Jon studied her profile, candle glow from distant ballroom flickering across cheekbones. Lord's whisper of everything. She turned to face him fully. And what does the man whisper? Jon's pulse thudded. He thought of winter roses, of a tower of joy, of ghosts. Then he thought of deserts blooming after storm, of a child no longer screaming at night, of a realm breathing. He took her hand. He whispers, he said softly, that roads converge. Arianne's smile was small but bright as dawn cresting dunes. She lifted his hand, kissed the scar where blade once cut along knuckle. Then let us see where they lead. They sat beneath the willow until lanterns guttered out. Stars wheeled. Somewhere across the castle, bells chimed thrice for the hour. Jon felt weight long carried ease by degrees. Peace still perched fragile, but within its hush, two hearts beat companion rhythm. Hostages freed, wildfire drowned, the brotherhood broken. Yet new trials waited, King's Landing councils, northern rumors of vanished small folk, free cities eyeing dragons with fear and greed. Wheels never stopped turning. But now perhaps wheel spokes had widened. Room for Sunspear, Direwolf, and the hope of a realm finding habit in unity rather than war. Beneath the willow, Jon Snow and Arianne Martell shared that fragile hope, dawn's first bird already warbling somewhere beyond garden wall. And when they finally rose to walk back toward the lights, their clasped hands traced silent promise across the night air. Stone upon stone, step by step, habit by habit, until the song